Hello everyone, I'm Kako Crisci. Welcome back to my channel. Let's have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. You may have noticed I first released this video last month, and then I took it down. I spent a good amount of time reflecting, facing my own concerns and fears. Now, I'm sharing this episode in full, and I truly believe this is the most important one I have ever made. This is the foundation of our Jade journey, and it can help you tap into the incredible potential you were born with. It's longer than usual, but please bear with me. My hope is this will open your mind and heart and help you soar on your own. Here's the truth. We all have the ability to think, but most of the time we don't. Instead of thinking for ourselves, we hand over our power to external authorities. We trust people with fancy titles. We rely on institutions with impressive buildings. If a famous museum curator or professor says something, we accept it without a question. But pause for a moment. When you walk through a museum exhibition or read a professor's book, have you ever stopped and thought, wait, could there be a hole here? Did they miss something? Most of us haven't, and that's exactly the problem. The power of thought is the greatest gift we were born with, yet so few of us actually use it. This isn't a new problem. Ancient Greek philosophers described it in the allegory of a cave. Our people chained like in the darkness, seeing only shadows on the wall. The shadows projected by the others, but we never see the reality behind them. Why does it happen? Because we are weak before authorities, and often too ignorant to question what we are taught. Our time and energy are limited. None of us can master everything. And that's why in most of the area of life, we are blind. And that's how we are. So what's the solution? How can we see the truth? The ancient Greeks believed that the truth is only seen after death. Why? Because after we die, we are free from the illusions. Think about it. That means we will live as with nothing while we live here. Buddha, however, offered us a more practical path. He taught that we don't need to wait until death to see the truth. We can see it while we are living in this world. In the Diamond Sutra, he says, 无我相, 无人相, 无众生相, 无寿者相. Traditionally, this is translated in textbooks as no self form, no person form, no sensual being form, no lifespan form. It sounds very difficult to understand, right? In traditional teaching, the Buddha's wisdom is often be summarized as nothing is permanent. In Chinese, there's another name for Buddhism called Kongmen, which means can be translated as the gate of emptiness. When someone entered a temple to practice Buddhism, we say that he has entered the empty gate. Well, nothing is permanent, is true. But this explanation alone doesn't fully capture what the Buddha wanted us to see. By focusing and emphasizing too much on impermanence, tradition has sometimes led people to believe Buddhism is about denying desire and embrace emptiness, a view that feels passive, even negative, and it usually appealing mainly to those who suffered tragedy. But this is not what I learned from Buddha. On the contrary, I discovered his wisdom to be deeply positive. It's not only encourage us to pursue truth, but also shows us how to pursue it. Far from being outdated or pessimistic, the Buddha's teaching is surprisingly modern, even scientific, in how it fits well in our today's life. That's why I want to share with you my own understanding, how I read the Diamond Sutra during my Jade journey, and how it gave me the courage to continue. I have taken this spirit of Buddha's 无我相、无人相、无众生相、无寿者相, and translated them into a modern compass for our Jade journey, grouping them to focus on external and the internal. When I ask myself, who am I? And why has no one built a Jadeology before me? No museums, no professors. How dare I attempt it? I find all my answers in the Diamond Sutra. You may ask, are we really allowed to put Buddha's teaching into our own words? That is a very important question. And in fact, it touches the essence of what Buddha taught. He said, if someone tells you, because the Buddha said so, you must obey, that is actually an insult to Buddha. The Buddha taught that there are millions of ways to walk the path of the truth. There is no single fixed way. Each of us must find the path that truly fits us. For me, that path has been Jade. For you, it might be something else, your own field, your own passion, your own life experience. That's why I believe we should focus on personal experience rather than only rely on traditional explanations to understand the Buddha. Think of it this way, like reading a moving novel. Sometimes it makes us cry so hardly or achy inside, yet we still say, what a good book. Why? because we see ourselves in it, isn't it? We connect with the characters and their stories reflecting on our own. That's how I feel with the Diamond Sutra. If we only follow the traditional interpretation, then the sutra becomes a dry, lifeless textbook. Here's my version, simplified for clarity. Let's go of what the crowd says. Let's go of what authorities say. Let's go of a tradition, obedience. And finally, let's go of myself, yourself. This teaching has been my compass. Let me apply this to our Jade study. First one, let's go of what the crowd says. On social media, people say whatever they want to say, opinions, but many of them have no facts. You will hear 99% of Jade on market is fake, or endless argument is real, is fake. The truth, they may see one spot, but if you ask them why, it usually ended up as a pure opinion. So we don't need to take their opinions too seriously. The next one is let's go of what authorities say. This one is harder. Professors, curators, directors, people with respected titles, we often think they have studied all their life. Of course, they know better than me. But remember the cave? They may be the very ones projecting shadows on the wall. Working in a museum for decades, it doesn't guarantee truth. Authorities can also create illusions. For people shaped by Chinese culture, it's especially hard to let go of authorities. My own mom often tells me, you are not a museum curator, you are not a professor, nobody will listen to you anyway. I understand her point. But the more I dig, the more I realize how lucky I am not to be a curator and a professor. I know a few curators who truly understand the Jade. But why didn't they build the Jadeology? Because once you are inside the system, your hands are tied by the rules and regulations. System force you to bend its way of survival instead of pursuing the truth. I once overheard a brilliant researcher in a very famous museum describe himself humbly, my position is low, therefore my words carry little weight. 位卑言轻. I was shocked. In such a great museum, with such respected title, he still felt his words means nothing because of his rank. And even if he can't speak freely, then I ask myself, who can speak for ancient Jade? The next one is let's go of a tradition, obedience. In Asian culture, this is especially difficult. From childhood, we were told, obey your parents, obey your boss, obey everyone above you. Questioning makes you a troublemaker. That culture of obedience explains why Jade, such the center element of a Chinese civilization, has been so little studied. For near 3,000 years, knowledge itself was restricted and often banned. It's not only about jade, but across many fields. After 1949, under Chinese Communism Party, obedience became survival. The party controls everything before you were even born and long after your death. I still remember the days when couples need a government-issued permit just to become pregnant. A sealed document stated exactly who could have a child and in which year. In this way, the party's control reached all the way back to the very moment of conception. Your behavior during your lifetime didn't just affect you, it shaped the future of your children. From access to higher education, job application, to every stage of their lives was affected by your record of obedience. In short, you are not allowed to question. You only can obey. Pursuing truth is dangerous, especially if it contradicts your superior's words. Even studying the work of foreign scholars could be seen as a betrayal. During Mao's time, many scholars paid for this with their lives. And guess what? We are not so far removed from those times. Who can say it will never return? From 3,000 years ago, the Western Zhou dynasty, to now, the main ideology didn't change much. We can see it from their slogan. From the Western Zhou dynasties, one nation, one family, to today's one nation, one heart, one voice. That meaning remains the same. There's no room for difference. No one dares to pursue the truth. Even in purely academic fields, far removed from politics, truth itself is dangerous. The best way to control people is not by force, but by making them thoughtless, mindless, by turning them into fools. And fools are far easier to control than thinkers. That, I believe, is the hidden secret behind the 3,000 years of a Chinese government. It is no wonder the Jadeology, the very essence and the spiritual core of a Chinese civilization, has never been allowed to exist as a discipline in China. And this isn't not just about China's story. It's a warning for all of us in any time, any place. Every time we choose authorities over observation, every time we handle in our thinking power, we surrender our ability to see truth for ourselves. That's why the fight for Jadeology is not just about Jade. It's about universal human freedom. The freedom to think, to question, and to see the truth with our own eyes. You see, when a system controls thought, it controls life. Many in Western world romanticize systems like socialism or communism, unaware that they are essentially the same. A rigid structure where a small elite, top 10% of the party, enjoys virtually entire pie. That elite controls that nation's wealth, medical cares, luxuries, you name it. But let me ask you, how can you be sure you can get into that 10%? And how can you be sure you can stay there? And how likely it is your children will survive under that privilege? If the answer is anything but a certain yes, then you own nothing. Not your property, not your bank account, even they're all under your name, they could be disappeared in one night. And certainly not your future. When the state owns the truth, it owns you entirely. Your body, your property, even a simple right to breathe freely are subject to its whim. This is the bloody truth built on the opposition of millions. Before you vote or advocate any ideology that demands your obedience over your observation, please ask those who had escaped. Ask them what the price they had paid for the promise of utopia. I know this is hard, but the final layer to peel back is the most difficult of all. We must let go of myself, yourself. This is the hardest step, so I put in the last. In Diamond Sutra, the Buddha repeats this teaching, Wu Wo, let go of self, again and again. Compared with the early steps of letting go, this one is the most difficult to practice. From my understanding so far, I have broken it into 2 steps to make it more approachable. First one, stop looking down on yourself. All humans are the expert at self-doubt. We think we are too small, too fragile, undeserving of standing tall. But alongside our force, we are born with a treasure. Most of us never recognize our power to think. I believe each of us is born with a unique talent, something special, something we are blessed with. All we need is the confidence to look inward and recognize the treasure we already carry. Yet, too often, we never tap into this great wealth. Why? Because fear holds us back from affirming it. I know this from my own experience. Fear once made me take down this very video. Even now, I still carry some of those fears. But I realize I cannot let the fear silence me. The Diamond Sutra gave me the courage to share this with you. Courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means recognizing fear and still stepping forward to do the work we are meant to complete. Second, beware of clinging to your own opinions. This is the opposite of self-doubt. Once we begin learning, we often become attached to what I think. You hear this in phrases like, I don't think they use this jade material that early, or I don't think this design existed then. Those are opinions, and too often we are blinded by them. But truth is not built on opinion. Truth is built on observation, empirical observation. Knowledge must be renewed constantly. Socrates said, "The only thing I know is I know nothing." The Buddha said, "Nothing can be said, not because they knew nothing, but because they understood that the knowledge must always be renewed." So, how do we renew our knowledge? How do we build knowledge? By looking directly at the jade itself. Let the artifact teach you. Experience and careful observation are critical. Many Chinese scholars and collectors can identify a jade piece by eye, but almost none have built a general, repeatable framework to study jade systematically. This is not a lack of experience that stopped them. It is the absence of a philosopher's mind. A method to abstract information from each jade piece into a structure that can correct and refine itself. If Buddha gives us the courage to see the truth, the ancient Greeks give us the tools to build it. To move from a simple observation to true, repeatable knowledge, we need a system. That system is the very essence of systematic thinking. And for Jadeology, it begins with Aristotle's 4 courses. This is the core idea of scientific or systematic thinking. Present a complicated thing in a simple, repeatable form so everyone can learn and reproduce it. That philosophical mindset is largely missing in traditional Chinese scholarship, which is why Jadeology hasn't been established as recognized discipline in China. To build Jadeology, scholars need foundations in classic methods, such as Aristotle's 4 courses, to extract and reorganize information from each piece. When we do this correctly, we can begin to puzzle together the fragment of lost civilization. Here is I convert Aristotle's 4 courses into a practical Jadeology checklist. For material course, since we study jade, we talk about each pieces, what kind of jade, and the texture, translucency. Remember, because of the Asian jade, they has stains and patinas. That's all belong to this category. And the formal course, we study design, the patterns. That's why the Asian people use this particular design, pattern, motif, all has meaning there. Express their belief, how they understand life, what they want. Efficient course is, for us, is a craftsmanship. We can examine the tool mark, how they carving out each piece. The tool marks will present us what kind of a technology they use back then, at the time. For the final course, we examine what this piece belong to the category. Is used for decoration, the ritual object, tool, what's the meaning of this course. More important in this final course because it can reveal what each piece represented in that time. Their belief, their social structure, and the cultural meanings it carried. Through this lens, jade becomes a mirror of civilization, reflecting how people understand life, death, power, sacred, and even technology they mastered. This 4-point framework is exactly what I teach on this channel. Step by step, through careful observation, we build a knowledge rooted in object. One piece at a time, not in our echo. That, I believe, is the great failing of today's jade field. Too many speaks from books and authorities, but not from jade itself. Many are unfamiliar with the basic philosophical method that make a systematic study possible. I find out it's very interesting. The Greeks and the Buddha, though worlds apart in culture, taught the same truth. Knowledge is already within us. To uncover it, we must peel away the layers. Let's go of the crowd. Let's go of the authorities. Let's go of the tradition obedience. Finally, let's go of ourselves. What remains? What remains is fact, the truth. When we apply this to jade, the path becomes clear. Ignorant human titles and outside illusions. Jade is the subject. Jade itself will guide us to piece together our lost civilization. This is the essence of Jadeology. When one day jade suddenly clicks for you, you realize the truth was never in a museum, a book, or in anyone's title. It was already within you. May this message give you the courage to see with your own eyes and help you find the treasure you are born with. Thank you for joining me today. I will see you next time.